Hey guys, welcome to the Maximum Service Podcast, brought to you by Lester Platt and Still Studios. We're just a couple idiots trying to do the right thing for once in our life. Pay attention. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Rector. Welcome to the Maximum Service Podcast, brought to you by Still Studios. I'm here with the infamous John O. John, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is John. Glad to be here. The second round of this. Kind of wanted to introduce something. We've got a boxing gym in town in Austin, based out of Austin, run by Jeff Meadows. It's called Black Sheep Boxing, and he offers a scholarship to people who are new to recovery. So if you're in your first month of sobriety, first couple months of sobriety, and you're interested in doing some boxing or some Muay Thai style martial arts, give him a shout. Get on Google, look up Black Sheep Boxing, and reach out to him. He's a really good guy, and he really supports people in recovery.
Yeah, we've known him for how long now? 5 years? 6 years?
5 years.
Yeah, we watched the guy get sober.
5 years, and I'm rocking the sweatshirt right now. I actually trained with him until I had neck surgery. And then, funny story, my doctor probably wouldn't want to hear this, and I don't think I ever told him, was apparently you're supposed to wait a year after you have neck surgery. And I decided after 4 months that I could go do a little boxing.
Yeah, so don't listen to John's advice.
Yeah, and then 6-7 months later, something like that, he opened the gym, and I went in, and, I'm going to do some sparring. And I walked right into a jab, and my neck clicked back, and I heard things crackle and snap, went to the ground, finished the workout, but hung up my gloves.
Moral of the story, don't listen to John. Listen to your doctor, everyone.
Listen to your doctor.
But yeah, check out Black Sheep Boxing. Jeff Meadows runs it up in North Austin. Fantastic cause, fantastic facility. It's beautiful up there. Went up there the other day and saw him. Amazing place.
Oh, it's amazing. It's an amazing spot. So please check it out. He's really a positive influence, and he'll get you in shape.
All right, so today we're going to talk about what to do if you find out your loved one, family member, friend is a drug addict or alcoholic, and what exactly we can do about it, what you can do about it, and what you can't do about it, I suppose.
And this is going to be an interesting topic.
Why do you think that?
We have different things you can do when it comes to treatment. So you have you've been in both sides.
Yeah, I've been an inpatient and detox.
Yeah, I'm not as versed in detox. I did more of the inpatient side, so of course Mark's going to have a lot more expertise on the detox, which is probably like the initial thing people are kind of interested in.
Well, I think people just don't know what to do most of the time. I mean, they're trying to use their best thinking a lot of the time. They're trying to use, I'm a parent. What would a parent do in this situation? Or I'm a brother. What would a brother do in this situation? And most people, to be honest, have no idea what to do. They don't know what's best. They don't know how to present it. They're not necessarily tactful. And so our job, at least in my estimation, is, well, how do we prepare someone for that type of situation, and what exactly are their options?
Here's a question I have. How many detoxes did you actually attend?
3 official, and then I try to detox myself. I say at least 100 times in the La Quinta, right by the Astrodome in Houston.
Yeah, the La Quinta detox. That's a very famous
Nurse
one.
Mark Rector.
I went to one. I don't think it's in existence anymore. And then I also did 20, 30 self-detoxes. A lot of experience with that. And I'll share my experience with the one detox that I had in Waco, Texas. Of course, I'll share that after you talk about why would somebody go to detox.
Well, there's a medical necessity.
Okay.
You got to go to detox because when we were doing those solo detoxes, it wasn't safe. I mean, plain and simple. You don't have nursing staff. You don't oftentimes have the proper medication. You may think you know what you're doing, but it's very, very unsafe to do that on your own. The possibility of seizure is super high. The possibility of a stroke, of a heart attack, especially if you're older and you have extenuating circumstances, other medical conditions going on. You see a lot of people come in with diabetes. You see a lot of people come in with abscesses. I mean, these are things that have to be overviewed by a doctor and by a nurse practitioner, and then constantly monitored by a nursing staff. Because seizure, I mean, that's the one big thing we're really worried about is seizures. Benzos and alcohol primarily.
Are they the most, what are the most dangerous chemicals or, I guess, alcohol or drugs to come off of?
Alcohol and benzodiazepines, so Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, things like that. Those will actually kill you. The opiate detoxes are mainly just really uncomfortable. I mean, you've been through those.
I've been through those. And so here's the difference, and I always tell people, alcohol and benzos, you can die. Opiate withdrawal, you want to die.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But you won't die.
And those are generally treated with medications. Medications like Suboxone is for the opiates or Subutex. And then for alcohol and benzos, they're going to get treated with Valium, Ativan, things like that.
And the Suboxone and the Subutex, that's a short term, right? That's like a couple days, maybe 4 days, and then you come off of it.
Yeah, in my experience and in my opinion, Suboxone and Subutex should only be utilized for detox purposes.
Yeah.
It's never intended for a long-term treatment, although a lot of people, they try and explore that, and in my experience, it doesn't work out as a long-term solution.
And we can talk about that that can be in itself a whole different podcast subject. I think we both have experience with using Subutex, Suboxone in a long-term, attempting, even methadone. I have experience with methadone for a long-term as a use of maybe not utilizing therapy or a 12-step fellowship or anything like that. It can be abused. There's a lot of ways to abuse it. So we can talk about that a little bit later. That's a great subject.
Yeah, that's for a whole nother episode.
That's a whole
maybe.
nother episode. So, okay, somebody has a problem. Let's just say
you're starting to see some of the characteristics of drug addiction and alcoholism.
Well, let's do this. Let's walk somebody through, and we're going to walk through somebody who's got a high. They're drinking a lot. Like I'm talking half liter of vodka. Which, by the way, when people start drinking vodka at that level, they're heading toward the end. Because usually vodka is the end. That's what I've always. If I could look at everybody that comes in, I'm like, well, what were you drinking at the end? It's vodka.
It's vodka.
So they come in, right?
Why is it vodka? It's easy to hide.
It's easy to hide.
It mixes with everything.
And it can be real cheap.
Yeah, it can be.
It can be real cheap.
Some McCormick's.
Oh, McCormick's.
Plastic bottle McCormick's, baby.
Without advertising that is, yes.
Sponsored by McCormick.
Sponsored by Plastic Bottle Vodka. So if you're drinking vodka out of a plastic bottle, you're probably heading to detox.
Okay, so.
Let's get back. So somebody has a problem. They're drinking. Let's say they're called, right? They've called admissions.
They want some help.
They want some help. Okay. They show up. What is the process through detox? What are they going to go through?
They're going to go through a lot of anxiety. Alcoholism in particular is going to have high levels of anxiety.
Okay.
But they're going to start to feel better, with that medication. They'll start feeling back to normal in about 5 to 6 days is generally what you're going to see. It's going to be uncomfortable, but alcohol detox really isn't too terrible as far as medical complications go outside of that seizure thing. It's not, medication controls it really, really well. What you're going to see on a mental level, though, is the scarier part because you're going to start to hear, oh, I've got my situation figured out. Oh, I know what I need to do. I just need to do this, and this. Or you're going to start to hear things like, I feel better. I don't need to complete my detox. And you're going to start to hear them talking about wanting to leave early, which is incredibly unsafe. No one should ever, from inpatient treatment to detox to a PHP program to an IOP program, if I could say anything to families, never let them leave early. That is always a bad idea.
What do you think because this is what my experience and what I feel is that when a client or somebody wants to AMA from detox,
Which is,
let's say it's a day, they want to get
no,
out.
what's
of day.
AMA?
Oh, AMA. Sorry, that's when you leave against medical advice.
Right.
Okay, so medically you haven't been discharged yet, and so you're leaving against that advice. You're signing yourself out. So there's a couple things that I find. Well, really, it's just one or two. Let's say this: I just want to go drink again. I'm done with this. Maybe I had a moment of clarity, and now I'm like, whoa, wait, or I feel better. Now I'm going to go back and do what I want to do. The second one is I don't want to go to treatment, and I think that's what's going to happen next. So I'm just going to get out of here now.
Yeah, you do hear that pretty often. I have to get back to work. That's a really popular one. Oh, I got to get back to my kids. That usually it's hidden behind a really great thing, something that benefits your life and is going to make sense to other people so that other people will agree with you. Oh yeah, he does have to get back to work. Oh yeah, he really loves his kids. And it's generally a lie that they're telling themselves, but they actually believe it. In reality, usually they just want to go drink again.
Okay.
Or they go, you know what, I've learned enough about my situation. I can handle this on my own. I don't need to go to treatment. Something like that.
Okay, so I like to put it, I like my examples. So I was thinking when you're saying that, let's say I'm set up for 5 days, right? We're looking at it's going to be a 5-day thing. I want to leave it 4. And the logic, this is where it becomes illogical, because in any other thing in which I've signed up for a service, let me say I'm going to go get my oil changed, and then they take they drain it, they put the plug back in, they start filling it up, and I go, whoa, all right, I'm out of here. I'm not finishing this.
That's
out.
good.
I'm not finishing this out. I'm like, yeah, but we still got to put the oil cap back. No, it's good, man. I'm out. I'm good. Good.
I know how to.
We'll do this.
I know how to fix that.
And then I get in my car, I drive off, the oil cap goes off, engine, sputtering oil, and then I'm going to blame the place that changed my oil. Like that's
right.
Generally what happens.
That's you see that pretty frequently. Yeah. And here's what happens is most of the time I see these people again in the detox. I mean, usually 2 out of 5 people that are in the detox have already been there at least one time. And every single person comes back and they go, I wish I would have listened to you. I wish I would have not left earlier. That was a bad idea. And then 3 or 4 days go by and guess what they're doing again? The same thing, driving off without their oil being finished.
So that's that. Going back to that, that's that situation in which we have that physical component. We talked about it last time. We have the physical component, and you got the mental component. And I think that's the common misconception is that if I get this out of my system, if I detox this stuff out of my system, then I'm going to be okay. And what they don't understand is when that stuff's out of your system, you still have to deal with the mental component. That hasn't been addressed. And you don't have a healthy way of addressing that or dealing with that because you've had a problem for, let's say, 2, 5, 10 years. And you go for 3 days and you think you're going to resolve this. And that's where that illogical thinking, what they call like insanity, which is just really your inability, right, to make a sound decision. That's what I see the problem. And I remember as, working over at the treatment facility and talking with you about detox, I would kind of hear what was going on. And usually it was this person wants to leave early. This person just hopped the fence. This family is picking this person up. The family is now turned and is on their side. And so what you said, what are some certain things or what are the certain things you need to look for in a detox facility? Like what are the key things you need to look for in a detox facility? Because I'm going to tell you one. How about you check in and make sure that if you have an opiate addiction, they actually have medications that deal with opiates.
Yeah, that would be good.
And this is, I love telling stories because it's one of the saddest moments of my life, and also as I look back, one of the most humorous moments of my life, which is my wife, my now wife, drove me to Waco to go to detox in Waco.
That's 3 hours away, right?
No.
Hour and a half?
Yeah,
I'm
hour
bad
and
at
a half.
geography.
Hour and a half. Jeez.
Don't let me drive the car.
Yeah, I went to detox in El Paso. It was 2 hours away. No, went to Waco. Not a great part of town. And I grabbed my bag, and I just looked at this place, and I was like, oh, man, this is not going to go well. And I walked in, and, the nurse was super nice. And she just goes, honey, we're not really set up for you opiate guys. And I was like, heart, floor. And I made it. It was difficult, but I did make it.
Oh, you pushed through it.
Oh, I pushed through. I was in Waco. Where was I?
Yeah, I guess she's going to leave you there. She probably just said, get out of the car.
I was in Waco, and I survived on. I was so sick. I survived on powdered donuts and Big Red because they did have a
breakfast of
little
champions
concession thing in there. So yeah, powdered donuts and Big Red. And I swore to God, I swore I'm never going to come do this again. Never going to. And I did. So relapse was 8 weeks away. But at that point, in that awful situation, I was never going to do it again. So that's a bad place to go.
Right. You're going to want to make sure that they can meet your medical needs. Okay. And a good detox is going to tell you if they can or not. They're going to properly inform you of everything. And they're going to tell you they're going to tell you what the protocols are. And you're within your right to ask those questions and do your research on what exactly you're looking for.
So here's my other question. Are there cases in which you're too far gone medically for that detox to handle you? And then what should they do?
Absolutely. There are situations where certain people's medical needs aren't able to be met. There's, in fact, exclusionary criteria for detoxes from the state where they can't take you if you have certain heart issues, and they can't take you if your abscesses are to a certain extent. And so sometimes they can't even take you because your liver is too shot. They can't take you. There's a lot of reasons. Wow. But in that type of situation, they're generally going to report that to you, and they're going to refer you out to a hospital. So hospitals have to take you if you're in a life-threatening situation to stabilize you. And a lot of the times hospitals expensively will detox you and treat what other medical needs that you have. So you can check into a hospital.
Okay. So the person's gone through detox, right? They have an AA made.
Thank God.
Thank God. They have an AA made. They're going to make it all the way through. One type of client or one type of person is going to leave, go back. Maybe they have the fellowship they've already engaged in. Maybe they're just not ready to commit. Maybe they're on the fence. But then there's the two types of clients. Let's say three. I keep saying
I'm interested
clients.
to hear what they are.
So here's the three. This is what I want. Okay, here's the three. One, they want to do it. Two, their family wants them to do it. And three, the court wants them to do it.
Yeah, you've got all three of those.
Those are the three bangers that you got. Now, with all my experience in working in inpatient treatment, guess which one? Which ones do I like?
Oh, the ones that want it. Oh, the ones that you like? I don't know if you want a challenge or not.
Oh, no, I'm not. I don't ever want a challenge. I love how this is also the other thing where people are like, oh, you like a challenge. No, I don't. I actually don't like a challenge. Challenges are...
oh, yeah. I love when they're like, you like this. You really love doing this to me. I'm like, no, I would rather not be confronting you on this issue.
Yeah, you know what I'd really love? I'd love you to just follow the rules and kind of do your thing and not be a jerk to your family. And I'd really love it if I didn't get a phone call at 7:30 because you're having a conniption fit about a phone call that hung up on you 1 minute before your time was supposed to be over. That's really what I want. I don't want a challenge, although sometimes I will say it's a little bit fun.
It can be.
It can be fun.
But that's because we like to help.
We do like to help.
It allows us to flex that
when
muscle.
we say challenge, what we really mean is extra help. That's what we're saying. So I like the person that wants it, and I also like the person that's there for legal. Because the person that's there for legal, they're going to stay the whole time usually.
Oh,
and that
pretty...
gives the opportunity of the treatment facility to work with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of flex for change in that.
And I found that particularly there's people recently, of course I left the industry about almost a month ago, but there's some people that they came with legal issues and I saw them transform into actually wanting to do this. And that's amazing to me. And so I like that. It's an extra boundary. It's an extra hurdle that they have to take. Not that I don't want to work with them, but it's harder. And I know that there's more of a chance that it's not going to be successful is when the person doesn't want to go, but the family's demanding that they go.
Mm-hmm. Those people need to have their own experience, which is, one of the roadblocks in detox is trying to explain that to the family who's desperately trying to smother their kid and love them to death out of ignorance and out of, just love. They just really want to love their kids to death, which is really sad. A lot of the times they want them to get help so bad that they can't logic and go, this person, they're not going to put in the effort that's necessary to complete this task.
That seems to be a theme that we keep going into. Like, this person has to put in the effort. The attempts of the family and people around them to do the things that are necessary for that person to grow, but they're doing them. And it's kind of what I said before is a lot of successful people, it wasn't handed to them. Therefore, they got to understand what they were capable of doing. And then you have a whole generation of kids or people that grew up in which the previous generation, my father, so I was born in 1977, so my dad was born in the late 1940s, and from that generation, along with my mother, that generation, when you graduated high school, you left home,
mm-hmm.
You went to college. Of course, college was affordable. I think it was like $5 a year, $5 a year. 50 cents a month for
That's
rent.
Good price.
Oh yeah, it was great. Gas was a nickel. I'm just messing.
But you had to figure it out.
Well, you had to figure out. You could actually do it, but you had to figure it out.
And your parents gave you room to fail.
Well, you didn't come back home.
Yeah, and you weren't allowed to come back home.
You weren't. No, it's like, hey, guess what? You're 18. Here you go. So you had to build something.
And you don't really see that a bunch anymore. It's some sort of cultural shift.
People got successful. And then they wanted their kids to not have the same experience, thinking it will help them. Oh, I want what I didn't have. Then you end up doing things, and then what you're subconsciously, like I said before, what you're teaching the kid or whoever is that I don't think you can do this. That's why I'm stepping in. And then the person relies on that person to step in. That type of situation is not really good for inpatient, because unless the family members have extreme boundaries, but that's a 50-50. That's a coin flip. And so as we're talking, like, to me, the ones that have the opportunity to be more successful are the ones that want it and the ones that have legal issues. Because
right, they want it and need it.
Well, they want it, need it. They're willing to do it to stay out of other situations. But if you got somebody where the family, and we talked about it last time, if you got somebody where the family's just pushing it, hey, push, likely you're probably going to buckle anyway, because you're trying to do something for them that they don't want to do. Two, they're going to AMA and do whatever, or they're just going to kind of do time and then get out.
Well, I will say sometimes you do have to, as a family, you do have to create this space for someone to become willing, and you just have to be delicate about it. You have to put in certain boundaries, which are reasonable. You mentioned not coming home. Hey, if you're going to leave Detox AMA, you're currently living in my house. Well, I don't want you around because you're drinking all the time and you don't have a solution for that, so you can't come to my house. I'm paying for your cell phone bill. Well, you use that cell phone to call people and get drugs. So I'm not paying for that. And when I suggest that, usually what happens is people go, well, how are they going to get in contact with me if I need help or if they need help? And my response is there are other phones that exist in this world. And if this person wants help, they know exactly how to get a hold of you.
So all the funny stuff comes in my head because it's like the family's like, how are they going to contact me? I'm like, you know, with or without a cell phone, if they needed to contact their drug dealer, they're going to have, guess what? They're probably going to make contact quicker than if they had a phone.
Well, also, how weak is this person? How poorly have you raised them that they do not know how to contact you? I think that's really, that's people just, they're in fear. They want to be able to talk to their family member if they're struggling. And so they say something that's illogical and doesn't make a lot of sense. And you see that all the time.
Well, I will say that. All right, I'm going to counter. I'll counter slightly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to counter. Well, I'm going to counter. I don't think it's a bad thing or that they want to know where their loved one is. I think that, you know, that's something when we're doing all this, I always have to tell the person, you have to find what is acceptable to you, like where your willingness is, like to cut off stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to be comfortable with it. You can't really be forced into it, although you can be encouraged and like, that's the way. You might have to like build up to that.
Yeah.
So I do get it where the fear that they're going to lose contact and they won't know where the person is. And that can be overwhelming, and therefore that's why they're doing it. But that's what they have to live with, right? I mean, because you're right. Do we have the ability to make contact? Yeah. I mean, do we have the, can we get a hold of things, people? Yeah, they can contact the family. They're probably going to do it anyway because they're going to run out of money.
Right.
I mean,
they're going to find a way.
Well, somebody's got to pay for cigarettes, right? And
well, I mean, there's other things that can be done too, and they're really difficult. I mean, and I'd rarely suggest this. It's not really something that I like to bring up, but you have to start to consider like, all right, how safe is this person around my kids?
Yeah.
You know, and that's a really difficult conversation to have, and it's an even more difficult thing to actually have to execute. But in some situations, it's absolutely necessary because people are. I mean, if you're a drug addict or an alcoholic and you're untreated and you haven't figured out a way to solve this, you're a liability anywhere you go. And I mean liability in the sense that you can cause some serious harm to yourself and to other people and should be treated as such. Not like like you can't treat someone like they're weak. You can't treat someone like they're fragile. You have to be able to set some tough and hard boundaries. But I do want to that's another totally different topic.
That is, I need to jump on it though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I'm
giving you good content.
You're giving me like 95 mile an hour fastballs in the middle. I'm going to whiff at a couple of them.
Well,
no, there's a couple. I'm going to be 2 strikes and then I'm going to.
We'll move on after.
Okay, I know. This is what you said it perfectly. Like, this is hard. When we say this, I'm not saying it's easy because I've had my experiences where I'm like, I've given this advice, I've done it a little bit, but when it comes down to you doing it, it's a thing. You have to really be strong, have some faith in what's going on, really trust in what experts are telling you, and you have to take the dive. Mm-hmm. But it is going to be the most difficult thing in that moment for you to do.
It's a life-altering decision. But you have to kind of keep in mind, I think, that this thing may save this person's life. It's going to be uncomfortable. My mom actually said it best. She said, I had to go through some short-term pain to experience long-term happiness with you. And I didn't realize that until I just started doing it. Without fear of what was going to happen to you. I just had to take action because what I was doing was not working. And so I said, you know what? I'm willing to risk it because the other alternative is not working out, which is exactly what we do, in our recovery stuff too, is we explore all the options, they don't work, and then we go, all right, I'll do some logical stuff.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, my mom's great.
No, she's awesome. I had a recent experience with somebody too who's having struggles with boundaries, and I think he knew that he was struggling with the boundaries, and that's what was getting to him, was that he knew what he should do, and he knew it in his own experience, but having to do that and practice that with somebody he loved was difficult. And, you know, one way of doing it, it's not like we're saying don't have a conversation with your loved one about it and you just go, you're cut, you're off. You sit down, have a conversation. I'm saying if they let you have the conversation, sit down and say, this is the boundary. This is what's going to happen. That way they know. There's nothing they can. You didn't tell me that this is coming up. No, we had a conversation. My side of the street, clean. I told you what was going to happen. This is not going to be shocking. You have the opportunity now to make a decision based on what you know are the consequences of your actions. It does take now the responsibility off of the family member and now on to the addict alcoholic. Mm-hmm. Because you can't say that you didn't know. You can't say it's unfair. You can't say any kind of you can't have any kind of justification. That's a helpful way. And I know we kind of like keep doing this and that, but I think what our real goal is to try to teach the family members and things like this is how you do it. And we might say it 18 different ways, 100 different ways.
If it reaches someone.
But it's what you need, and it's like our biggest thing. I keep going back to that. I mean, I'll sit down with an alcoholic addict, but if the people around them are not going to be helpful, it's a shot in the dark. I mean, it's like I'm going
to make you say it. Is who usually creates the biggest issue when someone's leaving treatment? What did you used to say? You can't fight the family and the disease at the same time.
Oh, did I say that?
Yeah, you said it once. It really struck me. I guess it was just you saying in passing.
I probably got that from somebody.
Well, we all get that, right?
Yeah. So you can't.
Well, families end up being their own
worst enemy. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you can't, like, you're trying to fight this, and when I say fight the disease, help the person out, and then you got the family member that is just enabling, making it difficult, causing more drama.
Well, and I do want to say that when we say these things, like, this comes after years of working with people and seeing tragic case after tragic case after tragic case, and us going, we know this isn't going to work. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking when you're talking to a family member and you're literally going, you're sowing the seeds of your son's death. Yeah. And you can't do anything about it.
It's difficult.
But I do want to get to this other thing that we mentioned it a little bit earlier about. So
let's get to it.
If someone is leaving detox, they do have some options.
They do.
So you mentioned inpatient treatment, and I listed off a couple other things. So I think maybe it'd be a good idea to break some of those, options, whether it's inpatient treatment, PHP, IOP. Like, let's talk about what those are as options and usually what's the best fit.
Okay, but let's dive into one.
Okay, go.
Because if we're going to leave, because we'll be here for hours, and
we'll be quick about it.
You can't be quick about inpatient because
it's your wheelhouse.
That's my wheelhouse.
Well, then I'll direct traffic a little bit. I'll say, shut up, stop.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we'll talk about PHP and IOP later, and I'm going to take over this. Okay, here we go. So inpatient, residential treatment, inpatient treatment. That's probably the go-to. That between that and IOP. So we have different choices. You have 30-day programs, 60-day programs, which kind of don't really, nobody ever says, hey, it's a 60-day program. Usually it runs on a 30-day, a 45-day model, and a 90-day model. I have firm beliefs around 90-day, probably because that's how I got sober.
Well, statistically, the longer you're in treatment, the better you do generally.
They do, but I'm going to be really honest about stats, and I'm going to give a shout out to the families. If any treatment facility gives you some blown out staff about their ability to be their percentage of getting
Run
people sober,
for the hills.
listen, if it's anything, I mean, an honest place should definitely be 40% below if they're honest. And what I'm talking about is like they get people, people stay sober and it's successful. If anybody, I heard somebody say 80%, I just like, that's a flat lie. That's, if it was 80,
You know how they do those studies, right? They just call up their alumni and they go, "How are you doing?"
yeah. Well, if
And they go,
anybody is saying that they got 80% success rate, then they need to copyright that model they have or give it free to everybody, and we wouldn't have a problem. That's completely insane to think that a treatment facility could claim that. Just the nature of the disease, it's going to be, the percentages. You can't really look at the percentages. I don't think that percentages really.
Well, we generally see longer term treatment work because you have more time away to develop healthier habits, to work through more trauma.
Well, yeah. Well,
And get those tools in
remember,
place.
here's the thing. You spend the first 2 weeks. I'm just going to fill it.
Yeah, go ahead. Because we'll talk about 30 days.
Yeah, you spend the. Say we're doing 90. Why is 90 important? Because you spend the first 2 weeks or maybe a month completely BSing.
Well, and you're foggy. You're still foggy from detox.
You're BSing. It's the first 2 weeks. You're complaining about the fact that you're there, even though you said you wanted to be there. I mean, I'm just going to give you the full, this is taking taking you to the fourth wall. I'm looking at you going this is really what's going on here. First 2 weeks, you're foggy. You're not really there. You're not doing the work. You're still uncomfortable. You're still blaming everybody else on why you're there and woe is me. Then you start doing the work. You start getting into the work.
So that's week 3.
Week 3.
Yeah.
And maybe for the next...
You bought in a little bit.
You bought in. Maybe I'm going to say for the next 6 weeks, you're in.
Well, if you're in that long,
Yeah,
if you're only in a 30-day place, that last week,
boom,
you're planning your
out.
discharge.
Oh, man, you're out. If you're doing a 30-day, guess what's happening? You just wasted the first week and a half. You haven't really been able to do anything. There's no way to work with a therapist in a 30-day model that has any kind of weight to it. I mean, what do you have? Meeting with somebody 4 times?
That's tops.
Yeah,
If
unless
you're
you're going to, a fancy facility and maybe there's 10 clients and 12 therapists, and then you're going to see multiple therapists a day. That's going to cost you some bank. Not everybody has set aside 401ks for their family members' treatment. More than likely, you've got insurance, or you're just paying cash or your scholarship.
Well, so with that, I do want to say that the 30-day model is super effective for people who have done a lot of therapy or a lot of 12-step work. It can be very effective in that sense because they're usually hitting the ground running. They're going, I already have a sense of myself. I know what's gone on with me. I just need to take some action and get this stuff back in place. The other people it works for are the broken. I mean, the broken of the broken. They got nothing left. It's either suicide or this, and they're willing to try this one more time. That is generally, that was my experience at least.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what I've seen work when people are in treatment for 30 days. Some of my friends, clients that we've had in the past, it's the people who they got nothing else to live for but sobriety.
The only way I can gauge that is if they're willing to stay longer.
Yeah, that's usually a good question.
That's my gauge. If you're coming in and somebody's not willing to stay longer, that's my gauge on where they're at.
And you can do that, by the way. If you're in a 30-day place, you can totally go to your counselor, or a family member can call up and go, hey, can we get them to stay longer? And sometimes they're even willing to help you out with that, cut you some sort of deal. They might even scholarship you if you're lucky.
And you know what I just realized? As I say that, there's going to be a bunch of people that did 30 days that were successful going and that's cool. You can say that. I'm still going to stick with 90 days is what I find is the best, because here we go. 2 weeks, 6 weeks, I've done some work. Well, guess what? It's the magic. You hit these plateaus, and it's 6 weeks after you've worked, so you're there for 60 days. Now, it's not always up, up, up. Now, some of that stuff's coming back again.
You mean
Now-
like the depression and the
Yeah,
anger?
the depression, the old behaviors, because it's not fresh, it's not new.
Well, and
ends-
you've moved away from drugs and alcohol a
You
little bit,
have,
so
and
it
now,
stops scaring
now
you.
it's like you. And here's the thing: is maybe the fireworks aren't there anymore. And this is more of a spiritual thing, and you're really gonna have to keep me in check on this one, because this is
go
this is
ahead.
my wheelhouse.
Don't get too
I love
lofty.
this. I will get super lofty. I'm about to go.
Don't scare away everyone.
I'm about to go to Mars.
Just go.
I'm just joking. Okay.
Just go.
All right. Just go there.
No, go.
Oh,
Just start
okay.
talking.
All right. So here's the thing. You need fireworks at the beginning. I think the universe provides fireworks in your search for things, search for authenticity, search for something outside of yourself, which I believe in when we come to this. You need fireworks because you need something that motivates you. You need something that demonstrates that there's something out there. But as you mature in it, and it can mature pretty quickly, those fireworks go away.
So at that like 6-week mark.
Let's say the 6-week mark. Say the 60-day mark. Those fireworks aren't there anymore. You're not having the aha moments. You're not having the epiphanies. You're not going like, oh, this serendipity happened. This, oh, I feel it. No. Now you're being asked to do real things. Now you're being asked to, well, I need you to do this. I need you to look at this. I need you to look at where you're living. I need you to look at the fact that your people don't want you to come home. I need you to look at the fact that you might lose your car. I need you to look at the fact that you owe an S ton of money to the IRS and how you're going to deal with that. I need you to look at the fact that your wife wants to divorce you now.
The real stuff.
Yeah.
This is
So the fireworks are gone. Everything's working out for me. You know, I can see all this stuff. And then reality hits. And now you have to work through this stuff without these magic fireworks going on everywhere.
and you can't turn back to drugs and alcohol to feel a little bit better about
And
the situation.
so what would happen if at 30 days or 45 days you left before the real stuff happens?
It's like a car running out of gasoline.
Yeah, like you have to you need to go through, you need to be able to do that, or you need to get that 60-day mark, because the reverb thing happens, like your bad habits, or your, not bad habits, but
You start to get comfortable and you start to get complacent in your behaviors that aren't so
you just
healthy.
you go back to where you were, and you
Yeah,
need to
that
be
happens.
reminded again. You need to be reminded again. You learn some stuff, you make some improvements. It's like sports, right? Oh, I got to work on this. So I go to a swing coach and I start doing really well. And then after I think I have it for a little bit, the old stuff starts creeping back in. And what does the coach have to all right, you're doing this again. So you think you have it, you're not paying attention, and slowly your old habits coming in.
Well, that's why like Jeff exists, right? Our friend, the boxing trainer, is
Yeah.
that's how he keeps you safe. Is he goes, hey, put your hands up.
Oh yeah, he has no problem telling you.
Yeah, because he didn't want to get you punched in the face.
No.
And so, what do you start to see at that after that? If you stick it through,
If
and
you
if you
stick it
pull
through-
through that dark day, what comes next?
Well, I think after you if you stick it through, right? Then I think the real work can happen. Not saying that any of the other work wasn't real, but you can go to that deeper level. There's an awareness around things. I think that's when the real experience starts happening. You get to actually address some stuff that maybe you weren't willing to address. And even then, I mean, 90 days it's a flash in the pan.
It's really not that long at all.
No, and that's like when people are like, it's so long. I'm like, you've been doing this for 10 years. 90 days is like a sand on the beach.
Well,
like
it's
it's
just-
a pebble. Like
It's wild to me how people go, I'm going to fix this 10-year-long problem that's developed after years of trauma and pain in 30 days.
I wish
I've handled it.
I wish we could do a whole podcast on every excuse we've ever
Every
heard.
ridiculous
every
thing.
ridiculous.
Well,
'cause
we can maybe do that, but let's. So we generally see.
I like 90. Let's just say that. I like 90. 60 is cool. I'm never going to shame you on anything, but if I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to say I think that 90 is the best.
Well, and let's look at it this way too. It's like me and John are still doing work 10 years, 15 years into the game.
Ugh.
You know what I mean? It's like me and John understand hey, like this is a lifelong process and you don't really check out per se. The treatment is really just a training camp. And if you don't prepare for war, you're not going to make it. And so how long do you want to spend in training camp?
Yeah, my biggest thing, and it's from my generation, because Mike Tyson was my generation's greatest fighter, because he just annihilated people. Like, it was, even the thought of getting in a ring with him is like, you're just going to cry. And he made extremely, he turned killers and just annihilated them. And that's what you're dealing with. We kind of had maybe this is a little more lighthearted, but when we go down to the depths of what it is, the reason why I think 90 days is, yeah, you're training for this thing out there that is deadly, that is the only disease that convinces you that you're not sick and just wants to take everything from you. And you're treating it as if you can just walk in the ring with Mike Tyson and you think you have a shot. And that is crazy. Well, and when I say crazy, I know we're not allowed to say that anymore, but I'm not, it's just crazy. That. It's
I mean, look at it this way: it's like if you came to me, John, and you went, Mark, you have to fight Mike Tyson tomorrow. There's no, like, your mom dies if you don't fight Mike Tyson. I would go, okay, I need help. Please, can I wrap barbed wire around my gloves? Like, what do I need to do? Can I kick this guy?
I'm going to be honest. If you said that, if that was, I'd be saying my goodbyes to my mother, because I really knew, like, there's just no way. I wish, but there's no way. It would be the same thing if you're like, hey, you have to beat this. You have 24 hours to figure out how to beat this addiction that's been, bankrupting you emotionally and physically and put you in the dirt. You have 24 hours to figure this out.
All I'm trying to say is my attitude would immediately shift into, like, I got to do something about this. Like, right. See,
I love how we're the complete opposite. I'm like, you know what?
Sayonara.
I'm just going to spend the next 24 hours with my mother. So I know you've got that thing, but that is what we're talking about.
Well, let's go into the IOP and PHP thing, because those are, I know that's not your wheelhouse per se, but we got to talk about them, because I don't know about you, but in my experience in the detox setting, IOP is generally the excuse you use to get people off your back. They go, oh, I'm not going to go to treatment. I'll go to IOP because I have work and I have kids.
Gotcha.
And it seems to make sense, but it's not genuine. At the end of the day, it's not, I really want to do work. It's going, I want to do some work, but I got to make sure that everything else stays afloat. And that makes good and logical sense.
Yeah.
But oftentimes what happens with that IOP selection is they're going, well, I have to make a decision based around work. That's my prime focus. And then they lose themselves in work, or they lose themselves in a relationship, or they lose themselves.
So I'm going to jump in real quick. It's not really the IOP. It's the person.
Correct.
Right. That's where the IOP has, and what IOP is an intensive outpatient. And so what you do?
Oh yeah, we should probably explain it. Sorry.
So rather than, some people, and so that's what I kind of want to put out there, because there's a lot of people that work in IOP that are very dedicated, that are very good at what they do, and it's just like treatment, right? It's not. I mean, you have to have a good model, but it's dependent on the person.
Yeah.
And so when we're saying that, it's like, if I give somebody the option of doing 90 days in an inpatient facility and they're like balking at that, more than likely they will be willing to choose an IOP, because it's 3 hours there's 3 times a week?
3 hours, 3 times a week of a group therapy session.
Group therapy happens usually in the morning or happens in the
they make
evening.
You can accommodate it for work. They even do online stuff now.
So I don't want to say that it's not a good program, but I hear what you're saying. So I'm basically going to translate is that what you find is that is the negotiation that that they put out there. Like, I can't do this, but I'll do this because let's just take this out of and here's the excuse one.
Yeah, and you're right, and it really is all about the person, their willingness level, and their commitment, because IOP can be very, very successful. If the person is willing and dedicated, it just becomes a little bit more challenging because you don't have that safe protection of treatment to where you can go lean on a counselor, you can lean on someone that's in there with you, or you can lean on a recovery specialist or something like that. And they're generally smack dab in the middle of a city. And a lot of treatment centers are outside of a city.
That's right.
So it can be, you also have to deal a lot more with the stresses that come with everyday life while you're driving home and a liquor store is right there, or you're driving.
Right.
So it can be a little bit more challenging, but not impossible.
But, and if you look at that, see, now that you explain it and that we're talking about it.
Yeah, sorry, I sounded like a...
No, that was good, because it could be beneficial, because if you are dealing with that stuff and then you have 3 hours, you have 9 hours a week to talk about it and to address it, there's the positive part. Also, what I found is, we did a lot of meetings and stuff like that. We had meetings within different departments, where we worked. We had many different options, and I thought it was very interesting to find that I always thought that in person had more success rates, but with COVID and everything that happened, they started going to like Zoom style video stuff, and surprisingly, the feedback that I was getting from the people running it was that there was actually more participation in those because there was that you didn't have to get in your car, you didn't have to show up, you didn't have to fight through traffic, you could in your own home put on a computer, cell phone, you just had accessibility. I thought that's something that in this day and age would be different than say 20 years ago or even 10 years ago.
I think maybe even psychologically it helps a little bit too, because
you're
you don't,
safe. Yeah,
you're safe. You're behind a computer. There's that screen, and that does help. But it can create a little bit of a roadblock too. Mm-hmm. So there's some pros and cons to that for sure.
So what is PHP?
So PHP, partial hospitalization. Basically what that means is you're either living in a sober living environment, or you're living at your house, going about your daily life, and every single day you're transported out to a treatment center or a facility of some sort, and you participate in their daily programming, and then you're bused back home. So it's this new thing that's come up in the past couple of years that really allows people to kind of do this dance between almost like an IOP setting and a treatment center setting, where you have a little bit more freedom.
And in order for it to qualify, there's a certain amount of hours. Like you got to put, it's not like you.
It's like going to a job.
Yeah, you gotta put. I think. Oh man, my memory is
probably like 5 hours. 6 hours.
I think it roughly came out to 5 to 6 hours that you had to put in for it to qualify for that.
And that's regulated by insurance.
Yeah, and that's the regulation. When we talk about stuff like that, that's if you're private pay, you kind of have a different way that you can do things. I wish we could do a podcast on insurances, but I don't want to get mine canceled. So I don't want them to go like, oh, this guy,
boop.
Because I will say this, because I love dropping that. Guess what? Insurance doesn't want to pay.
It's not a secret, John.
I know it's not a secret, but I'm going to say it out loud it'll be on record.
You got him.
What I found is insurance will find any way not to pay, even if you really need it, especially when it comes to addiction.
Well,
let's go back. So we're at PHP.
PHP. Well, there's not really much more to say to it outside of the design. We found it to be successful. It's this nice little happy medium, and you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. Although, of course, you do still have the stresses of everyday life. The chance of relapse is a bit higher, I would say, just because of you don't have like that support system there. And you miss the accountability piece, which we haven't even really talked about much. The accountability piece of having a counselor on your butt, a recovery person on your butt, day in, day out, asking you, hey, pay attention here. Because just naturally as humans, whenever we see a problem, I think we want to avoid it, especially early on. We don't want to stare at it for too long.
Right.
We might acknowledge it and then go, oh, distraction.
That's right.
But, the staff there really does push you. They go, hey, remember that thing that you said you were going to work on? We're working on that right now, today.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so those are, if we look at that, you can see the benefits, you can see the maybe the pitfalls of some of them. I'm always going to, and it's just my opinion, of course, I'm always going to say it's my opinion. It's not set in stone. It's not factual. It's just based on my experiences that I find that 90 days is to me the best. The best doesn't mean it's the most successful. To me, it's the best opportunity. I think IOP has its place. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience with it, being in it or being around the process of it. So I have to go on other people's experiences, but I do know that there are some very creative, intelligent therapists and people that run that have a lot of heart and that really care about people. And then the PHP process, which is kind of the both worlds combined. And again, I just always want to go back to when we talk about all this stuff, detox staff, IOP staff, PHP staff, treatment staff. I think in my reflection of leaving, did not realize how much I'd put into it and how much energy it took from me and how much I absorbed. And so I look at all my people that are still there, all the people that worked there before, all the people that are going to work there. And it's like a big salute and a big respect, because what people don't know unless you've been there is how much it takes from you to be in those environments. And I just, all day today, I kept thinking about it, how much I realized how different it was not to be working there. And so I want to acknowledge all the people that are there. And so when we talk about these different places, these different situations, it's never to say one has more value, the staff here understands it better. It's that we're all on the same team. And there's going to be people that really put their heart into it, and there's always going to be people that that are just there for the check.
Well, I would 100% agree with you. Like, everyone's got the best of intentions, and you don't sign up for a job like that and stick with a job like that unless you really do care and you got a big heart. The trick is, if you're looking for some sort of facility, you can get some, we'll say, uninformed, ignorant, not tactful. Any counselor staff, treatment centers don't always have the best of intentions. You do have like the Florida situations, and that's not every place in Florida. And then you have some California situations, and that's not every place in California. But they're this is not every 30-day place, but there are, in my experience, there's been some, kind of turn and burn places. They're just trying to get your insurance money and run.
Yeah.
And they do, a lot of them, they have the best of intentions in mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're talking about, and oftentimes I would say that empathy, love, and care can blind you sometimes, just like it does with the families. It can do that to a counselor, it can do that to a recovery person, and it's really important to be tactful, knowledgeable, and I guess if anyone's listening to this and it's hitting them in a way like, oh, I want to be, good at my job, I want to be able to help people in the right way. It's like, we just have to stay humble and keep working and seeking out expertise and understanding that, like, my way may not be the best way all the time. And I got to ask for help. I got to share my experience, and I got to be willing to take some feedback and criticism, just like we're asking the clients to do.
No, that's
so, like, I hear you. Like, everyone, it's a lot. It's a hard job. They even have that compassion fatigue, right? Soldiers get it. I think people, and I'm not comparing soldiers to counselors. I simply mean that you go through so much and hear through so much trauma and pain, and you see so many people die. I mean, how many people we've seen dead, John? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this. I'm going to interrupt and go, like, I'm not going to compare to soldiers. It's a little bit different. But I've listened and absorbed so much darkness that nobody's going to understand that unless you worked in it.
Yeah, so my heart goes out to like our fellow people.
Like anybody that's just in the game, of course, like battle-wise, I'm not going to say that, but the internal battle and the mental and physical and spiritual stuff that a worker in the industry takes on, and especially if you've done a decade, some people 2 decades, it's you suffer from it. There's a suffering. Even if you're super healthy, you can't help but bring that on. But I mean, that's a whole different thing. I will say this: I'm going to put in, if you're looking for what kind of treatment facility that your loved one should go to, there's a couple things I would look for. 1, do they take insurance? Okay. 2, private pay, of course. And 3, do they give scholarships?
Yeah, that's big.
That, to me, that's big. If you can hit all 3, like, hey, we do insurance, we also do private pay at it's sometimes at a discounted rate, and then we do scholarships. And when we say it, I say we, and when that facility says you're here for 60, if something happens, we don't kick you out because of financial stuff.
Yeah, that's one
something
thing.
happened. We don't do that. For that facility, I'm not speaking for any facility, but if you're looking at that type of facility, that's what you need. We don't do that.
Yeah, that grinds my gears. when people
Oh, that
do
grinds my gears when I hear people like, I'll speak to a family member and they're like, I'm talking to them like, oh, my so-and-so's in treatment. And I'm like, how long they been there? Oh, 4 weeks. And I go, well, okay. And they're already in PHP. I'm like, how? Oh, well, the insurance stepped them down. So they go off the step down of the insurance. I have a problem with that.
Yeah. Or they kick them out.
Or they let them go. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that style. Maybe somebody who's involved in that wouldn't have a problem with it, and I'm not going to look down on them as a person. I'm just not going to suggest that treatment facility.
Because there are other options.
There are other options, and I think somebody who says, this is what we think you need, this is what we're going to do, we have an agreement, as long as you don't try to pull the wool over our eyes, we're going to go all the way. And that's what I look for when I worked in places. That's a reason why I stuck around longer.
Well, I would agree with all those things.
Yeah.
I would say that things that are important to me is, what does your clinical program look like? What does your 12-step program look like? Can I speak to any individual counselor and talk a little bit about the recovery process? Or can I speak to the 12-step person and talk a little bit about that process? Help me understand what this treatment stay is going to look like for me. Are there any opportunities to do family sessions? Is there any coaching that I'm going to get, and what is that going to look like? Could you give me some examples for what to do afterwards? I don't even know how to handle him when he leaves, because you say it's going to be a war when he leaves. So what am I supposed to do? Am I along for that war? What does that look like? So if a treatment center can't confidently answer those questions, I would start to say, let's look somewhere different. Well, and I will say too, we didn't mention the other one, the other option that people have, the sober living option.
Oh, they're going to say, I was going to make a joke.
Well, you just ruined it.
I know, I just yeah. Well, okay, wait. Sober living's a whole different thing. That, to me, that's a different thing.
Well, I just want to say,
we're going to save that.
Well, I want to say
we're going to save it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something.
Okay.
So the best option that I've seen work in my experience, and you may have something different, is someone attends a long-term treatment center, 90 days. Mm-hmm. They're stepped down into either a PHP or an IOP in addition to sober living. They stay in that sober living, I'd say 4 to 6 months, if they're able to do it and pull it off. That is what I've seen be most successful as far as program is concerned. Not going directly back home, going to some sort of step-down situation.
I would agree. I'm glad that I let you finish that.
Thank you.
But sober living, and we'll talk about different sober livings and what to look for. That could be a whole different podcast. I think that's a good way to end it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because what we'll do is maybe we'll pick up and talk about sober living and our experiences, and also our experiences around the different ones, maybe the ones you want, the kind that you want to stay away from. Of course, never going to mention people's names. Our deal right now is not
We're not going to call people out.
I'm not going to shame anybody. I'm not here to.
We're not here to make fun of people.
We're not. No, we're
here to be helpful.
We're
Maximum
here to be helpful.
service.
Maximum service. And I think we went over some really good things. Of course, hey, I'm going to say this too. On YouTube, you can comment. And if you have any questions or something that you want us to address, that'd be a perfect way for us to know.
Yeah, we'll
hey,
reply.
What about this? Mark will reply to you.
I did this week.
He did, Mark.
But we can actually talk about it as a
Yeah.
whole topic. We need things to talk about. We want to know
Yeah.
what you guys want to know about
Yeah.
and maybe what we can help with.
So I know we have stuff coming up. We have sober living talk coming up. We're probably going to talk about
Boundaries.
interventions.
Interventions.
Then we're going to go a little bit deeper. I kind of want to talk about some imprint stuff, some core emotional addiction stuff. That,
Oh, cool.
And kind of explain a little bit of that and talk about the mentor I had with that. There's also other things that recently came up, DID within, addicts and alcoholics and what that whole level
goodness.
is. Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about, and there's also some fun stuff, and we don't have to, we don't have to sit
We're going to be
and
serious all the time.
All the time. It's just not possible. So, again, Black Sheep Boxing, check that out. If you're new into recovery and you want to get a workout, a male or female, it's not just guys. There's some females in there that
Kicking butt and taking
were
names.
kicking some butt when I was like, okay, this is stay away from that one. And then of course we have the production company that's really helping us put this
Yeah,
together.
Still Studios.
There we go.
Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
support and sponsorship, and everything that everyone said has been super kind.
Oh, it's been super great. And, just, keep it coming. Share it with people. If you think that it's something that can benefit you. Also, check us out on, what do we have? Spotify, Instagram,
Maximum Service Podcast.
Maximum Service Podcast. Apple, right? You
Yeah,
can catch
Apple
us
Music.
on the Apple Music.
Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find
yeah.
us. We'll be posting
Channel
videos
3
regularly.
on the VHF. All right, okay.
And
We just
that was
got
it, right?
All right, no, that's not cable. All right, next time.
All right,
we're
next
going to
time on
discuss
Maximum Service
the difference
Podcast.
between antenna TV and cable,
Yeah, I know.
and then streaming.
I think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay, probably not.
All right, guys.
All
Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening. Likes, share, subscribe.
Likes, happy
We're out.
faces. Okay.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. We really enjoyed presenting the information to you. And guess what? We have plenty of topics to cover coming up in the next weeks, actually. And so how are you going to know that we have a new podcast out? Well, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go to Spotify. You're going to go to Apple Podcasts. You're going to go to YouTube, and you're going to hit like, subscribe. You can even message us on the YouTube page. Shoot us a line. Ask us a question. What do you want to hear? We're here to answer. We're here to provide you with as much information as this washed up musician and that washed up model can give you. So again, we appreciate you listening and watching, and we hope that you have a great week.